Now let's begin. Robert Douglas had learned to live with ghosts. 3 years after Sarah's death, her memories still lingered in every corner of their Seattle home. The coffee mug she'd chipped on their honeymoon, the half-finished crossword puzzle book on the nightstand, the garden she'd planted that Robert couldn't bring himself to uproot. But the brightest light in his darkness was Emma, their 12-year-old daughter who had Sarah's sharp green eyes and her unflinching determination. Robert had built his career as an industrial accident investigator, a job that required meticulous attention to detail and an almost obsessive need to understand how things went wrong. After Sarah's sudden aneurysm, he'd thrown himself into work, perhaps hoping that if he could solve other people's disasters, he might somehow make sense of his own. Emma had been 9 when they lost Sarah. Now, at 12, she was becoming her own person, stubborn, brilliant, and far too perceptive for her age. "Dad, Grandma Tara really wants me to come visit," Emma had said 2 weeks ago, sitting at their kitchen table with her math homework spread out before her. "She says the cabin's beautiful in late spring, and she's lonely up there." Robert had hesitated. Tara Henderson's cabin was 3 hours north, deep in the woods near the Canadian border. Sarah's mother had retreated there after her husband died, preferring isolation to the pity of neighbors. Robert understood the impulse, even if he'd chosen differently. "I don't know, Em. That's pretty remote. Grandma needs family. Mom would want us to be there for her." The invocation of Sarah had settled it, as Emma knew it would. Robert had driven Emma up 2 Fridays ago, spent the weekend helping Tara fix a leaky roof, and left his daughter there for a planned 2-week visit. Tara's nephew Jorge had been there too, a quiet man in his early 30s who'd recently moved back to the area after years in California. Robert had met him once before, at Sarah's funeral, and found him unremarkable. Pleasant enough, but forgettable. The call had come on a Tuesday afternoon. Robert was at a work site in Tacoma, examining a collapsed warehouse scaffolding, when his phone buzzed. Not a call, a voice message notification. Emma rarely called during the day, respecting his work hours, but she'd text sometimes. This was different. He stepped away from the crew and pressed play. "Daddy, please come." Emma's voice was barely a whisper, trembling. "I'm in danger. I'm hiding in the..." Static. Silence. The message ended. Robert's blood turned to ice. He called back immediately. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. And again. Nothing. His hands were shaking as he dialed Tara's landline. The cabin had spotty cell service, but the landline always worked. It rang 8 times before going to the ancient answering machine. "Tara, it's Robert. Emma sent me a message. Something's wrong. Call me back immediately." He tried Emma's phone again. Voicemail. The drive back to his truck took 30 seconds, but felt like hours. His mind was racing, running through scenarios: an accident, an animal attack, a medical emergency. The rational part of his brain, the investigator's mind, was already analyzing. Emma had said she was hiding. That meant a threat. A conscious threat. The drive north was a blur. Robert pushed his truck to 80, then 90. He called the local sheriff's office. "My daughter's in trouble at the Henderson cabin on Route 47. She sent me a message saying she's in danger." "Sir, we'll send a deputy to check on the property. What's your relationship to the cabin owner?" "Tara Henderson is my mother-in-law. My daughter Emma is staying with her. She's 12 years old. We're dispatching now, sir." "How far out are you?" 2.5 hours. "I'm coming from Tacoma." "Sir, I need you to drive safely. We'll have officers there within 20 minutes. But Robert couldn't drive safely. Every minute felt like Emma slipping further from his grasp. He kept calling Emma's phone, Tara's landline, the sheriff's office for updates. The deputies had arrived at the cabin. They'd found something. They wouldn't tell him what over the phone. "Sir, please just get here safely. We'll brief you when you arrive." The tone in the dispatcher's voice told Robert everything and nothing. Something was terribly wrong. He reached the turnoff for Route 47 as the sun was beginning to set, painting the pine forest in shades of amber and shadow. A mile from the cabin, he saw the lights, red and blue, strobing against the trees. 3 sheriff's vehicles, 2 ambulances, and a white van he recognized as the county medical examiners. Robert's vision tunneled. He abandoned his truck in the middle of the road and ran. A young deputy tried to intercept him. "Sir, you can't. My daughter is in there." Robert's voice came out as a roar. The deputy grabbed his arm. "Sir, I need you to. Where is Emma? Where is my daughter?" An older deputy approached, his face grave. "Mr. Douglas?" I'm Deputy Marvin Bonner. We spoke on the phone. Where's Emma? Bonner exchanged a look with the younger deputy. Sir, we found a girl in the cabin. She's alive, but take me to her. Mr. Douglas, before you go in, I need to prepare you for what you're going to see. Robert's knees nearly buckled. The investigator in him understood what that meant. Trauma. Injury. Something the deputy couldn't articulate because the words were too horrible. I need to see my daughter. Now. Bonner nodded and led him toward the cabin. We found her in a crawl space under the kitchen floorboards. She'd hidden herself there. She's conscious but non-responsive. Paramedics are with her now. What happened to her? Bonner's jaw tightened. We're still piecing it together, but it appears she was assaulted. Badly beaten. There's evidence of. Mr. Douglas, your daughter fought like hell. She's a survivor. The cabin door was open. Inside, Robert could see overturned furniture, broken glass, blood on the hardwood floor. His vision blurred. Then he saw her. Emma was on a stretcher, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Her face was swollen almost beyond recognition, one eye completely shut, her lips split, dark bruises covering every visible inch of skin. Her clothes were torn and bloodied. But worst of all was her expression. She stared straight ahead, unblinking, unseeing. Catatonic. Robert stumbled forward, falling to his knees beside the stretcher. Emma. Baby, it's Dad. I'm here. No response. Her eyes didn't move. A paramedic touched his shoulder gently. Mr. Douglas, we need to get her to the hospital. She's in shock and needs immediate care. What happened to her? Robert's voice cracked. Multiple contusions, possible concussion, fractured ribs. She's been through severe trauma. We need to move now. Robert rode in the ambulance, holding Emma's cold hand, whispering to her even though she gave no sign of hearing. You're safe now. I'm here. I won't leave you. You're safe. At the hospital, they took her away. Tests, examinations, procedures he couldn't be present for. Robert paced the emergency room waiting area like a caged animal. Deputy Bonner had followed and now sat across from him. Mr. Douglas, I know this is the worst possible time, but I need to ask you some questions. Where's Tara? Emma's grandmother. Bonner's expression darkened. Mrs. Henderson is in surgery. She was found unconscious near the back of the property with severe head trauma. Someone struck her from behind. The pieces were starting to form a picture Robert didn't want to see. This wasn't random. No, sir. This was targeted. We believe someone came to that cabin specifically to harm your daughter. Mrs. Henderson likely tried to protect her and was attacked first. Who? That's what we need to figure out. The cabin is isolated. No signs of forced entry. Whoever did this either had a key or was let inside. Jorge. Bonner looked up sharply. Jorge Henderson? Mrs. Henderson's nephew. He was staying at the cabin. He was there when I dropped Emma off. We haven't been able to locate Mr. Henderson. His vehicle isn't at the property. Do you know where he might have gone? Robert's hands clenched into fists. Find him. We're working on it. Mr. Douglas, I need to know, was there any indication that Jorge Henderson might pose a threat to your daughter? Robert's mind raced back through every interaction. Jorge had been quiet, almost invisible. He'd helped with the roof repairs, made small talk, seemed harmless. But that was the problem. Robert was trained to see patterns, to identify risks, and he'd missed this one completely. He'd left his daughter with a predator. No, Robert said, the word tasting like ash. I didn't see it. Over the next 3 hours, doctors came and went with updates. Emma's physical injuries were severe, but not life-threatening. The psychological damage was immeasurable. She remained unresponsive, locked somewhere deep inside herself. The rape kit came back positive. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Robert had to step outside. He made it to the parking lot before he vomited into a trash can, his entire body shaking with rage and anguish and a murderous hatred so pure it felt like it might consume him from the inside out. His phone buzzed. Deputy Bonner. We found Jorge Henderson's truck abandoned 30 miles south. We've issued an APB and alerted the FBI. He's on the run, but we'll find him. Don't. Excuse me. I'll find him myself. Mr. Douglas, I understand you're upset, but you need to let us handle this. We have resources, jurisdiction. You have bureaucracy and procedures. I have motivation. Robert ended the call. He stood in the parking lot as night fell completely, staring at nothing, something cold and calculating settling into place where his panic had been. This was a crime scene, a disaster, and Robert Douglas was very, very good at investigating disasters. More importantly, he was about to become very good at causing them. 3 days passed in a haze of hospital rooms and police interviews. Tara Henderson woke up on the second day with a fractured skull and patchy memory. She remembered Jorge arriving at the cabin unannounced that morning. She remembered feeling uneasy about something in his demeanor. Then nothing until she woke up in the hospital. Emma remained locked inside herself. Doctors said she was experiencing severe psychological trauma and dissociation. She might come back. She might not. There were no guarantees. Robert hired a private security company to guard Emma's hospital room. He installed cameras. He slept in a chair beside her bed, holding her hand, talking to her, showing her photos of Sarah, playing her favorite music. Nothing penetrated the wall she'd built around herself. On the 4th day, Robert received a call from a Detective Sidney Kemp from Seattle PD. "Mr. Douglas, we've been coordinating with the sheriff's office on the Henderson case. I need to ask you about your whereabouts and activities over the past few days. You think I'm a suspect? We're eliminating possibilities. You've been asking questions, making calls, hiring private investigators. Some people might interpret that as interfering with an active investigation. Some people can go to hell. That's my daughter in there. I understand, Mr. Douglas. But we need you to let us do our job. Jorge Henderson will be found and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." "That's not enough. Sir, I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. For your own sake, stay away from this investigation." Robert hung up. The police didn't understand. The fullest extent of the law meant a trial, lawyers, appeals. It meant Jorge might get 20 years, might get life, might even walk on a technicality. It meant Emma would have to testify, relive her trauma in front of strangers and cameras. No, Robert had a different plan. He'd spent the past 3 days doing what he did best, investigating. He'd hired a private investigator named Patrick Case, a former FBI agent who'd gone independent after getting fed up with red tape. Patrick had been digging into Jorge Henderson's background, and what he'd found made Robert's blood boil. Jorge had a record, but it was sealed. Juvenile charges of assault and sexual misconduct from when he was 17. His wealthy parents had hired expensive lawyers, gotten him into a treatment program, and the records were buried. He'd moved to California supposedly to start fresh, but Patrick had found 3 complaints filed against him in Los Angeles, 2 from women, 1 from a teenager. None had resulted in charges. The complaints had been withdrawn after financial settlements. Jorge Henderson was a predator who'd been protected his entire life by money and connections. And when he'd moved back to Washington, he'd set his sights on Emma. Patrick Case met Robert at a diner near the hospital. He was a lean man in his 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes that didn't miss much. "I've got more," Patrick said, sliding a folder across the table. "Jorge Henderson isn't just a predator. He's smart about it. Every place he's lived, there's a pattern. He targets young girls, builds trust, isolates them. His family's money has bought him clean records and fresh starts for 15 years. Robert opened the folder. Inside were police reports, testimony transcripts, photos. His hands shook as he read. One of the Los Angeles victims had been 14. Jorge had been working as a youth counselor at a community center. Why isn't he in prison? Money talks. His parents are loaded, old timber money from up near the border. They've been cleaning up his messes since he was a teenager. When things get too hot in one place, they relocate him somewhere else. Did Tara know? I don't think so. Sarah might have, though. I found an email exchange from 4 years ago between Sarah and Jorge's mother, Becky Henderson. Sarah was asking pointed questions about Jorge's past. Becky shut her down hard. Threatened legal action if Sarah spread malicious rumors about the family. Robert's chest tightened. Sarah had known something was wrong. She'd tried to protect Emma even then. And now Emma was paying the price for Robert's ignorance. Where's Jorge now? That's the interesting part. Patrick pulled out a map. His truck was found here, but there's no indication he left the area. No bus tickets, no rental cars, no credit card activity. Either he's using cash only and laying low, or someone's helping him. His family. That'd be my guess. The Henderson family has a compound about 60 miles north of the cabin. Sprawling property, private roads, security gates. If Jorge's anywhere, he's probably there. Robert studied the map. Can you get me surveillance photos of the property? I can do better than that. I've got a contact who used to work security for the Hendersons. He's willing to talk, for the right price. Money's not an issue. Set it up. Over the next week, Robert became two people. During the day, he was the devoted father, sitting with Emma, talking to her doctors, coordinating with the hospital staff. At night, he transformed into something else, a hunter, methodical and patient, gathering intelligence on his prey. The security contact, a man named Harvey Huynh, met Robert in a parking garage in Seattle. The Henderson compound is like a fortress, Harvey said, showing Robert blueprints on his tablet. Main house, 3 guest cottages, security checkpoints at the main gate and service entrance. But the family's paranoid about outside security after a robbery 15 years ago. They don't trust security companies. It's all family members and personal staff. So Jorge could be hiding there and no one outside the family would know. Exactly. And even if the cops get a warrant, the Hendersons have enough lawyers to tie things up for months. What about vulnerabilities? Harvey smiled. There's always vulnerabilities. The compound backs up to national forest land. No fencing there, just natural barriers and some motion sensors. The system's old, hasn't been updated in years. And the service entrance, they use a rotating code that changes weekly, but it follows a pattern. What kind of pattern? Birthday sequences. Family birthdays in chronological order. I've got a list. Robert took the list, already formulating a plan. Anything else? Yeah. The family's hosting a gathering this weekend. Some kind of reunion. If Jorge's there, he'll be surrounded by family members who'll protect him at all costs. Good, Robert said. I'm counting on it. Emma spoke for the first time on day 9. Robert was reading to her from one of Sarah's old journals, stories about Emma as a toddler, Sarah's hopes and dreams for their daughter's future. He'd been doing this every night, hoping Sarah's words might reach her where his couldn't. Daddy. The word was so quiet Robert almost missed it. He dropped the journal, gripping Emma's hand. Baby, I'm here. I'm right here. Her eyes focused on him for the first time in over a week. They were haunted, filled with a pain no 12-year-old should ever know. He hurt me. I know, sweetheart. I know. But you're safe now. He said nobody would believe me. He said his family would make me disappear if I told. Robert's vision went red. He lied. You're not disappearing. You're my whole world. And I believe you. Where is he? The police are looking for him. Will they find him? Robert looked into his daughter's eyes and made a decision. Yes. One way or another, he'll pay for what he did to you. Emma's grip on his hand tightened. I want him to hurt like he hurt me. Robert's heart broke and hardened simultaneously. Emma should never have to feel this kind of rage, this need for vengeance. But she did, and he understood it completely. He will, Robert promised. I swear to you he will. The doctors wanted Emma to stay in the hospital for observation, but Robert moved her to a private facility with better security and trauma specialists. Tara, recovered enough to be discharged, wanted to see Emma, but Emma refused. The sight of her grandmother triggered panic attacks, reminders of the cabin, of what happened there. Tara was devastated. It's my fault, she sobbed to Robert. I invited him. I let him into my home. I should have protected her. You tried. You have a fractured skull because you tried. It's not enough. I should have known. I'm her grandmother. You couldn't have known. Jorge fooled everyone. Even Sarah, Robert thought bitterly. Even the person who'd been suspicious had been silenced. But Robert wasn't going to be silenced. He was going to be loud. He was going to be devastating. Patrick Case had obtained detailed information about the Henderson compound and the upcoming family gathering. It was Jorge's father's 70th birthday. The entire Henderson clan would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole protective network that had enabled Jorge's predatory behavior for years. Robert's plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. He wasn't going to kill Jorge Henderson. Death was too quick, too easy. Jorge needed to suffer the way he'd made Emma suffer. Publicly, completely, with no escape and no one to protect him. Robert spent 2 weeks preparing. He hired specialists, not criminals, but experts. A data recovery specialist to pull deleted files from Jorge's devices. A forensic accountant to trace the payouts to previous victims. A videographer who specialized in documentary work. And Patrick Case, who coordinated everything with the precision of a military operation. You understand this is illegal, Patrick said as they reviewed the plan. Breaking and entering, theft, possibly kidnapping, depending on how it goes down. You'll be throwing away your life. My life ended when I saw Emma on that stretcher, Robert said. This isn't about me anymore. It's about making sure Jorge Henderson never hurts anyone again. The cops could still catch him. Put him away legally. Could. Maybe. Probably not. His family will protect him. They always have. Robert looked at Patrick. I need to know you're in. If you have doubts, walk away now. Patrick was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened his laptop. The gathering is this Saturday. Security will be lighter than usual. They don't want the family celebration feeling like a police state. Window of opportunity is between 9 p.m. and midnight. Robert smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Saturday arrived with clear skies and unseasonably warm weather. Robert spent the day with Emma, who was making slow progress with her trauma therapist. She was talking more, though nightmares still woke her screaming. The doctors said recovery would take months, possibly years. Some scars would never heal. At 7 p.m., Robert kissed Emma's forehead and told her he loved her. She gripped his hand. Are you going to find him? Robert nodded. Yes. Good. Make him scared, Daddy. Make him feel what I felt. I will, baby. I promise. Robert met Patrick at a staging area 10 miles from the Henderson compound. 2 other men were there, Miguel Shepard, the data specialist, and Bill Johns, the videographer. All were dressed in black tactical gear. Everyone clear on the plan? Robert asked. Miguel nodded. I get Jorge's laptop and phone. Pull everything. Deleted files, search history, communications. We're looking for evidence of other victims and family involvement in covering up his crimes. I document everything, Bill said, checking his camera equipment. We get Jorge on video confessing. We get family members on video protecting him. We create an unimpeachable record. And I make sure we all get out alive, Patrick finished. Let's move. They approached the compound from the National Forest side, just as Harvey had suggested. The motion sensors were exactly where Harvey said they'd be, and Patrick disabled them with practiced efficiency. They scaled the natural rock barrier at the property's edge and found themselves in manicured gardens behind the main house. Through the windows, Robert could see the party, maybe 40 people, well-dressed, drinking wine, celebrating. He scanned faces until he found Jorge. He was there, standing near the fireplace, laughing at something an older woman was saying. He looked completely at ease, no guilt, no fear. Protected by his family's wealth and influence, he probably thought he was untouchable. Robert was about to teach him otherwise. The guest cottage Harvey had identified was separate from the main house, connected by a covered walkway. Robert and his team waited until the party's energy reached its peak, around 10 p.m., when everyone was sufficiently drunk, then made their move. Patrick picked the cottage lock in under 30 seconds. Inside, they found Jorge's belongings, laptop, phone, personal items. Miguel went to work immediately, connecting devices and running recovery software. Got something, Miguel whispered after 10 minutes. He didn't even encrypt it. Videos. Lots of them. Different girls, different ages. Jesus Christ. Copy everything, Robert said, his voice deadly calm. Every single file. While Miguel worked, Robert searched the cottage. He found journals, detailed accounts of Jorge's attacks, written with clinical detachment like scientific observations. He found souvenirs, jewelry, photographs, clothing items taken from victims. And he found correspondence between Jorge and his parents, emails discussing the situation and managing the PR and ensuring Jorge's fresh start. The Henderson family hadn't just enabled Jorge. They'd been active participants in his predation. Bill documented everything on camera, creating a damning record. Done, Miguel finally said. I've got terabytes of evidence. This guy's a serial predator, and his family's been covering for him for years. Phase 2, Robert said. They left the cottage and moved toward the main house. The party was still going strong. Robert picked up a champagne glass from a serving table and walked straight through the front door. No one noticed him at first. He was just another guest in a crowd. He made his way to Jorge, who was now sitting on a sofa, talking animatedly to 2 younger cousins. Robert sat down across from him. Hello, Jorge. Jorge's face went pale. Robert, what are you? How did you? We need to talk. Privately. I don't think that's a good idea. Jorge stood, looking around for support. Robert pulled out his phone and showed Jorge a photo, one of the videos Miguel had recovered. We can talk privately, or I can play this for everyone at your father's party. Your choice. Jorge's face twisted with panic. You're bluffing. Robert stood and raised his voice. Hey everyone, can I have your attention? I've got some birthday entertainment for. Okay, Jorge hissed. Outside. Now. They walked out to the garden, Jorge visibly shaking. Patrick and Bill were positioned in the shadows, Bill's camera rolling. What do you want? Jorge demanded. Money? My family will pay you too. I don't want money, Robert said. I want you to understand something. You destroyed my daughter's life. You beat her, raped her, and left her for dead. And you thought you'd get away with it because you always have. I didn't. You can't prove. I have proof. Hours of it. Video of you assaulting underage girls. Emails from your parents covering it up. Journals where you detail every attack. I have everything. Jorge's face went from pale to ashen. What are you going to do? I'm going to give you two choices. Option 1. You walk back into that party, confess everything to your family and the police, and spend the rest of your life in prison. And option 2. There is no option 2. That's the only choice you get. But here's what happens if you don't choose it. I release everything I found to every news outlet in the country. CNN, Fox, local news, newspapers, online media. I show the world exactly what you are and exactly how your family protected you. I make the Henderson name synonymous with child predation. I destroy everyone you've ever cared about. You wouldn't. Try me. You have 5 seconds to decide. Jorge looked around desperately, as if searching for an escape route. Then he seemed to crumple. What do you want me to say? The truth. Every victim. Every attack. Everything. They'll kill me in prison. Probably. But that's the consequence of what you've done. You made Emma face her worst nightmare. Now you face yours. Jorge started to cry. Not tears of remorse, but terror. Please. I'm sick. I need help. My family can get me treatment. Your family has been getting you treatment for 15 years. It didn't work. You know why? Because you're not sick. You're evil. There's a difference. Robert stepped closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk into that house and tell your family exactly what you did to Emma. Then you're going to call the police and confess. If you do this, I'll hold on to the evidence. It'll stay private, just leverage to make sure you never see the light of day again. But if you run, if you try to hide, if you let your family protect you one more time, I burn it all down. How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't. But it's the only option you have. Jorge was shaking so hard, he could barely stand. Robert felt no pity. This man had hurt Emma, had broken her, and would have done it to other girls if given the chance. Let's go, Robert said, grabbing Jorge's arm. They walked back into the party. Robert positioned himself near the door while Jorge stood in the center of the room, trembling. Dad? Jorge called out. Everyone, I need to tell you something. The room quieted. Jorge's father, a distinguished-looking man with silver hair, frowned. Jorge, this isn't the time for. I heard a little girl, Jorge blurted out. 2 weeks ago. Emma Douglas. I beat her, and I raped her, and I left her for dead. The room erupted. Gasps, shouts, denials. Jorge's mother screamed. His father rushed forward. Jorge, stop talking. Don't say another word. I can't stop, Jorge said, tears streaming down his face. I've hurt so many. I'm sick. I need to confess. I need to. His father slapped him hard across the face. Shut up. You don't know what you're saying. You're drunk. You're having some kind of breakdown. He knows exactly what he's saying. Robert called out from the doorway. And so do you. You've been covering up Jorge's crimes for 15 years. Paying off victims. Sealing records. Moving him from city to city every time he attacked another child. All eyes turned to Robert. Jorge's father's face went purple with rage. Who the hell are you? Robert Douglas. Emma's father. Security, the elder Henderson roared. Get this man out of my house. You don't have security, Robert said calmly. Just family members. And I don't think they're going to want to protect Jorge once they hear what I have to say. Robert pulled out a tablet and connected it to the room's large-screen TV. I'm going to show you all who Jorge Henderson really is. What happened next was chaos. Robert played clips from Jorge's videos, not the full attacks, just enough to show faces, dates, the scope of his predation. 12 victims over 15 years. Some as young as 10. Family members started shouting, crying, some trying to leave. Jorge's mother fainted. His father lunged at Robert, but Patrick stepped in, restraining him. The police are already on their way, Robert announced. I called them before I came in. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Jorge's confessing to everything, and I'm handing over all the evidence I've collected. Every video, every email, every payoff. The Henderson family's involvement in covering up these crimes will be fully investigated. You can't do this, Jorge's father snarled. We'll sue you into oblivion. We'll destroy you. You're welcome to try. But here's the thing about evidence. Once it's out there, you can't stop it. I've already sent copies to 3 different news organizations, set to release if anything happens to me or my family. So if you want to come after me, go ahead. But it'll only make things worse. The police arrived exactly when Robert said they would. He'd called them from the car, given them enough information to secure a warrant. Detective Sidney Kemp was among them, looking at Robert with a mixture of anger and grudging respect. You're under arrest, Kemp said to Robert. Probably. But Jorge goes first. Kemp nodded. We've got both of you. Jorge was handcuffed and led away, still crying, his father shouting about lawyers and rights and false accusations. Robert let them cuff him without resistance. He'd known this was coming. Breaking and entering, theft, possibly a dozen other charges. But he didn't care. Emma would see justice. Jorge would go to prison. And the Henderson family's ability to protect predators was finished. As they put Robert in the patrol car, he saw Bill Johns in the shadows, camera still rolling, documenting everything. The footage would air. The story would break. And Jorge Henderson's name would be forever linked to his crimes. The trial was a media sensation. Jorge's videos and the evidence of his family's cover-up became national news. The Henderson compound was raided, revealing even more evidence of systematic abuse and protection of Jorge's predatory behavior. Jorge's lawyer tried to have the evidence suppressed, arguing it was obtained illegally. But the sheer volume of victims who came forward, once the news broke, 14 more women and girls reported attacks, made the illegally obtained evidence almost irrelevant. The prosecution had more than enough to bury Jorge without it. Robert was charged with breaking and entering, theft, and interfering with a police investigation. His lawyer argued justification and necessity, that Robert had acted to protect future victims when the legal system had failed. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before acquitting him on all charges. Emma was there for the verdict, still fragile but growing stronger each day. When the not guilty was read, she squeezed Robert's hand. Jorge Henderson was convicted on 17 counts of sexual assault, attempted murder, and a litany of other charges. His parents were charged with obstruction of justice and conspiracy. The family's timber empire collapsed as partners fled and investors pulled funding. At sentencing, Emma stood up to give a victim impact statement. Robert had tried to talk her out of it, but she'd insisted. You tried to destroy me, she said, looking directly at Jorge for the first time since the attack. You tried to make me disappear, but I'm still here. I'm scarred, I'm changed, but I'm still here. And you're the one who's going to disappear. Into a cell. Forever. The judge sentenced Jorge to consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. He'd die in prison. As they led Jorge away, he looked back at Robert one final time. There was no defiance left in him, no smug confidence. Just fear and the knowledge that his victims had won. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Robert made a brief statement thanking the prosecutors and the victims who'd been brave enough to come forward. Then he took Emma's hand and walked away from the cameras, from the circus, from all of it. They drove to Sarah's grave. Robert had been coming here every week since she died, but Emma hadn't been able to face it until now. Hi, Mom, Emma said quietly, touching the headstone. I'm okay. I mean, I'm not okay, but I will be. Dad made sure the bad guy paid, just like you would have. Robert knelt beside his daughter. I'm sorry I didn't protect you. You did protect me. Maybe not from getting hurt, but from being forgotten. From Jorge getting away with it. That's what protection looks like sometimes. They stayed there until the sun set. 3 years of grief and 2 weeks of horror finally beginning to heal in the shadow of Sarah's memory. Emma would never be the same. The nightmares would linger. Trust would be hard. But she was strong. She'd inherited that from Sarah. And she had Robert, who'd proven that when his daughter needed him most, he'd burn the world down to keep her safe. That night, back at their home, Emma asked Robert a question she'd been holding on to. The videos you showed at the party. Did you really send copies to news organizations? No, Robert admitted. That was a bluff. Once Jorge confessed, and the police had all the evidence, there was no need to traumatize his victims any further by making those videos public. So you lied. I lied. Emma smiled, The first real smile Robert had seen from her since before the cabin. Good. I'm glad you can lie when you need to. That means you're not just strong. You're smart. Robert pulled his daughter close. I'll always do whatever it takes to protect you. Always. I know, Dad. That's why I'm not scared anymore. And in that moment, Robert realized the truth. Jorge Henderson hadn't just lost his freedom. He'd lost the power to create fear. Emma had survived. She'd testified. She'd won. The ghost of what happened at the cabin would haunt them both forever. But ghosts, Robert had learned, could be faced. They could be fought. And sometimes, with enough love and determination, they could even be conquered. 3 months later, Emma started back to school. She'd lost half a year, but the school was understanding. She joined a support group for assault survivors. She started writing in a journal, processing her trauma with words Sarah would have been proud of. Tara moved out of the cabin, selling it, and using the money to fund a nonprofit supporting young victims of sexual assault. She and Emma slowly rebuilt their relationship, though it would never be quite what it was. Robert went back to work, investigating industrial disasters with the same meticulous attention to detail he'd used to bring down Jorge Henderson. But something had changed. He understood now that some disasters couldn't be prevented, only survived and avenged. On the 1-year anniversary of the attack, Emma asked Robert to drive her back to the area where the cabin had been. Not to the property itself, that had been torn down, but to the forest road nearby. I need to see it, she explained, to prove to myself that I'm stronger than the memory. They stood on the road where Robert had abandoned his truck a year ago, where he'd run toward the ambulances and the awful truth. Emma took a deep breath. I'm not going to let what happened define me, she said. I'm going to define myself. Every day, I'm going to choose who I am. And I'm going to be someone who survived and came out the other side. Robert hugged his daughter tight. You're already that person, Em. You've always been that person. As they drove home, Emma turned on the radio and sang along to a song Sarah used to love. Her voice was strong, clear, unbroken. Jorge Henderson had tried to destroy her. He'd failed. The bad guy had paid. The good guys had won. And while the scars would remain, they would heal into evidence not of weakness, but of survival. In the end, that was the only victory that mattered. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.